Hey everyone, welcome back to Shop Life. In this video, I'm going to show you how to replace your Vanos Solenoid pack for your S54. So this car that we're working on today is an E46 M3, but this will work on any S54. And a Vanos Solenoid is pretty much this pack right here. So as far as the solenoid pack goes, they do end up going bad, mainly the solder joints inside the pack itself. So usually you can buy a whole new one, or you can go to Bison, however you want to say it, systems.com, and they sell a whole rebuilt solenoid pack. They redo all the solder joints with proper solder, and they usually don't crack again. And all you have to do is you have to return your old solenoid pack that you get out, and they'll give you some of the core money back. When you buy the solenoid coil pack from Bison Systems, they also include a couple of O-rings for the actual pressure valve restrictor, and you also should buy the Vanos sealing plate repair kit, or you could buy a whole new Vanos sealing plate, whichever you choose. Their sealing plate seals kit actually comes with Viton O-rings, so they shouldn't go bad again, and you can reuse them if you ever have to pull it off again. So in order to do this, it's actually very simple. It doesn't take much time at all. You don't have to remove too many things. So let me go and show you what you do need to remove. Alright, so don't mind the valve cover being off on this engine. You don't need to remove the valve cover at all. The main reason we have it off is we're also doing other Vanos stuff to this car, and the valve cover gasket and valve adjustment. But anyways, the main thing that you're going to have to remove is the fan shroud that goes right here. So in order to remove that fan shroud, you're going to have one push pin right here, and one right underneath the sensor. And once you get both of those push pins out, you want to lift up, and that part of the shroud will come out. So yeah, now that we're at this stage, so you should have the fan shroud out, you have access to all this. The solenoid pack sits right here. You can see the connector that goes to it. Usually when the solenoid pack starts going bad, you're going to get misfire codes. You might also get timing related codes. You might also get Vanos errors, and that's mainly going to be from that solenoid pack not being able to activate the proper solenoids. So what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be removing the whole solenoid valve body as well as the pack together. That's how you have to remove it. And we're also going to remove this pressure restrictor and clean out the whole valve body, clean out the filter on there as well. First, what we're going to do is we're going to loosen this pressure restrictor valve. Main reason we want to do that right now is once you have this whole valve body off, it's kind of harder to take it off because sometimes it is really tight on there. So if you just loosen it right now, it's going to make it easier for you to pull it off once we have the whole assembly out. Another thing you want to do is you want to go ahead and cover everything down here. That way you don't get any oil that leaks out. You don't want to get any of that on your lower radiator hose or your belts. So you don't have to remove the fan, but if you already have the fan off or something, it does make it a little bit easier because you have more access. But anyways, we've got the fan shroud out. We're going to loosen this restrictor valve first. All you need is a 22mm wrench. Get it on there and loosen it. There you go. With that loose, now it's going to be easier for us to remove that once we have the whole solenoid pack and everything off the car. Now we're going to remove this connector for the solenoid pack. If you have a zip tie around it, make sure you cut the zip tie first. And in order to release it, you just want to push the tab. You're going to push the tab in and push the connector off of the pack. So here's the connector, and here are the two tabs, one on each side. So push the two tabs in and pull the connector off. Now if you have oil and stuff on here, you can go in and clean that out with electric or electronic contact cleaner or mass airflow cleaner, even throttle body cleaner, all that stuff, you could use that. Just clean out that connector so you don't have any loose contacts. Now put that to the side. Alright, so now we're going to be removing this whole solenoid valve with the solenoid pack attached to it. You're going to have to use a hex 5. And you do want some kind of a long socket or an Allen wrench. You could use that as well in order to get to these two bolts down here. So once again, this is a 5mm hex. You want to make sure your socket's in there all the way. That way you don't strip the bolt. And make sure you have a towel or something covering the belts and the hose. There's one of the smaller bolts. So we've got 2 small bolts and 3 long ones. The top 3 bolts are the same size. You want to leave one attached to it. That way you can put your hand underneath it and loosen that one the rest of the way so you catch the whole assembly. Here we go. There's also a sealing plate that's out at the bottom that's between that whole valve body and the rest of the Vanos, so make sure you get that out. Here we go. Alright, now here's the whole thing. We're just going to clean it up a little bit first so we don't get dirt anywhere else. Alright, so in order to remove the solenoid pack from the rest of the body, you're going to need an external 4 torque socket. And there's 4 bolts holding it in place. So go ahead and remove that. And this is a quick tip. If you have like a doggy diaper or anything like that, it absorbs all the oil so you don't make a mess everywhere. So I like to put that down before I start working on stuff like this. And we are going to have a lot more fluid coming out once we start cleaning the actual valve body itself. Now we're going to return this one to base on systems, and here are the 4 bolts that came out of it. But before we put the new one on, we're actually going to clean all of this up, clean inside the valve body as well. So you're going to want some brake cleaner, and you're also going to want 2 really strong magnets. So I got these magnets from Home Depot, and they have like a lifting strength of like 100 pounds, I believe. They actually come together as like one assembly, but I cut it in half. That way I have 2. Before we take off this restrictor valve, I'm going to clean up the rest of the body a little bit. Now here's a 22mm wrench. Let's go and remove this restrictor valve the rest of the way. Here we go. Now if you want, you can actually replace this filter, but you can also clean it out with brake cleaner. It's just like a little screen on it, so you don't really have to replace it. But we are going to be replacing both of these O-rings. The actual base on systems kit for the solenoid pack actually comes with 2 new O-rings. So to clean this, all you really do, you just get some brake cleaner and you start going at it. Just get in all of the holes, and just wipe. And make sure you're using something that's lint free, that way you don't leave any traces anywhere. In order to remove the O-rings, you can use some kind of pick. Just pull this O-ring out. This one's easy. On this one, you might actually have to cut a little section of the O-ring to get it out, because it is really hard. So you can use like an X-Acto knife or something and just like cut a little slit in there so it separates, and then you can pull it off the rest of the way. Alright, so when you're removing this black O-ring that sits in here, make sure you don't damage this white Teflon seal. You don't want to take that one off. You want to leave that on there, and make sure you don't cut that one by accident. So only the black seal is one that we're removing. Now here's a seal that's included with the kit. There we go. And the big one just goes on the top. I'm just going to clean everything up once again before we reassemble it. Alright, now we're going to clean this body itself. You can see all the holes where the oil is coming out of. So we're going to just try to clean all of the oil out. We only want clear or brake cleaner coming out, no oil. Alright, so now we're going to start using the magnets to actually open up the valves, and when they're open, we'll blast it with the brake cleaner and try to get as much of the stuff forced out as we can. Alright, so with the magnet, what you want to do is you want to get close to the actual solenoid valve itself, and you should hear it click. You'll hear an audible click, and every time you remove the magnet, the click will, you'll hear it click as well. So it clicks open, and then once you remove the magnet, it clicks closed. So you want to keep hearing that, and it should be very free. So we're just going to keep clicking it open and close until it gets freer and freer, and in the meantime we're also going to blast it with brake cleaner to clean it up. Let's just put it on. The reason I split my magnet up into 2 is so I can open all the valves at once. Alright, so it should be open like this. Now we're going to blast all 4 holes again. And you should see more of it coming out of the pressure regulator where it was going through. Now you just want to keep opening and closing the valves. You should even be able to feel the actual opening and closing, and it's gonna more of a sound like a very small tick, but it should be opening freely. So as soon as the magnet touches it, it should open up, and as soon as it lets go, it should close. You just want to keep repeating this process of opening and closing and cleaning until you start hearing all the valves opening and closing as soon as the magnet touches it. And it should be, like I said, it should be a very audible click. You can see when I'm shooting some of the holes, it comes out of another hole. You just want to keep doing it until it's completely clean. You see how some of that oil is still coming out? I just want to go ahead and clean up the sealing plate, and we're actually going to change the O-rings out on this. You can also buy a new plate. Like I said, the plate is not that expensive, and those include the original BMW seals that are on there. But I like to use the new upgraded Viton seals, that way it'll last a long time. So now what we have to do, we have to remove that black O-ring material that's in there. So you can use some kind of knife, X-Acto knife, or anything like that, even like a dental pick, and try to get it out as much as you can. You just want to clean that whole surface up. The outside can remain black, it's okay, like on the actual surfaces like this, but the inside where the O-ring is going to sit, you want that to be clean. So you can see how I got that O-ring out. You just want to clean the whole surface up. Just you don't want any black stuff remaining on the inside. Alright, so once you've got all the black gasket material out of the sealing plate, you're going to take out your Vanos seals pack from Bason Systems. It comes with 4 O-rings. They're all different sizes. So the smallest one goes here, the next one goes here, next one goes there, and the biggest one goes right there. With all that done, we've got the whole valve body cleaned up. You can hear it click. Now we're going to put the pressure valve, restrictor valve back in here. You can put some silicone spray on the O-ring, the big one, just to facilitate unscrewing it in. You probably won't be able to get it nice and tight right now, but just get it as tight as you can. Now here's the rebuilt solenoid pack. It slides right over. There's no gaskets or anything in between. Just get it on there. These are all E5 bolts. Now before you put this back on, make sure you clean the surface on the actual Vanos that this attaches to. So then what you're going to do is you're going to put this. You also have your sealing plate. Your sealing plate like that. Make sure you're holding it together. Make sure the pressure valve is going towards the driver's side of the engine bay. And once you slide it in, then you have the bolts that go in. You have the 3 bolts on the very top, and you've got the 2 small ones right here. I'm not gonna put this back on, mainly because I'm still gonna pull off the rest of the Vanos and stuff. But that's exactly how you do it. And don't forget to tighten this all the way up, and make sure you plug in the connector. And make sure that connector is clean before you plug it in. With that being done, then you can put the fan shroud back together. Go ahead and clear your check engine light, and then once you turn it on, your car might still stumble a little bit until all the oil starts going through, it purges all the air out. So if it does do that, don't be worried. You might even get a few check engine lights for like the first 5-10 miles. Just clear them, keep driving, just see how everything reacts. But usually this does take care of most of those codes, and even if you have rough running and stuff like that, it should take care of it. But that's still not to say, make sure you go look through the rest of the Vanos. I've got a whole video that goes over the Vanos common issues and how to prevent them and how to fix them. So we're still gonna have a few more videos on the whole Vanos system, on rebuilding it with putting a new oil pump disc, changing out the sprocket bolts and stuff like that. So make sure you stay tuned for that. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment down below. Make sure you go follow us on all of our social media, and go check out the vlog channel at ShopLife Vlogs. Thanks for watching.